Okay, so picture this. December 1st, 2025. India's parliament is gearing up for what's supposed to be a huge winter session. You know, a time for major, game-changing reforms. But that's not what happened. Instead of debate, it kicked off with pure chaos.
I mean, the agenda was absolutely packed. The government had this whole lineup of really ambitious bills, stuff that would touch everything from the economy to public health. So everyone was expecting, a session full of serious debate and actual lawmaking.
But nope, the second things got started, that entire plan just got thrown out the window. The floor of Parliament, which is supposed to be this place for calm deliberation, it instantly turned into an arena for protest. First, you had the shouting. Just imagine, the air is just thick with chants and slogans. There's no way you're going to have a structured debate in that kind of environment.
Then came the walkouts. Opposition members weren't just using their voices. They were making a statement by getting up and leaving the chamber all at once.
And finally, adjournments. All that disruption, it forced a complete stop to everything. Seriously, day one of the winter session looked less like a functioning government and way more like a political free-for-all.
All right, so let's really dig into what happened on day one. From the get-go, opposition parties just brought the whole session to a screeching halt with their protests. And that led to one very predictable outcome.
Adjournment. What is that exactly? Well, think of it like a parliamentary timeout. It gets called when things get so chaotic that it's just impossible to get any work done. And on day one, that's exactly what happened. Both houses of parliament, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, were forced to adjourn. The whole legislative machine just ground to a halt.
So, to really get why this standoff is so intense, you gotta look at what was on the line. This was not just some routine session, not at all. The government's agenda was packed with some really huge, potentially game-changing proposals.
Let's take a look at the lineup, shall we? We're talking about massive economic shifts, like opening the door to 100% foreign ownership in insurance companies. Then you've got big public health moves, like hiking taxes on tobacco. And there were even critical policy changes about nuclear power and how voter lists are managed. All in all, something like 14 key bills were on the table.
Just look at this number, 100%. That's the proposed new limit for foreign investment in India's insurance sector. This is a huge deal, a landmark move meant to pull in massive new investment. And you can bet it was a high-stakes gamble the government was absolutely determined to win.
Okay, so if the agenda was that big a deal, why on earth were the protests so intense? Well, the opposition's side of the story is that they were basically forced to cause a scene. Why? Because they felt the government was completely ignoring what they called urgent national issues.
And their list of complaints was pretty specific. They were demanding a debate on this thing called the Special Intensive Revision of Voter Rolls. Basically, they were worried it could be misused to kick people off the voting lists. They also brought up national security, pointing to recent blasts in Delhi, and the absolutely terrible pollution in the capital. So their main charge was this. The government was ignoring real, immediate crises just to ram through its own pet projects.
So what you have here is a classic clash of narratives, two totally different ways of seeing what's happening in Parliament. And of course, both sides are convinced they're the ones acting in the nation's best interest.
Let's break it down. On one side, the opposition is saying, hey, these voter roll changes are just a political power play. And these new bills, they're all for the corporations, not for the people. They're basically accusing the government of avoiding transparency. But then the government fires right back. They're calling it pure obstruction, saying you're blocking critical development. These disruptions are actually hurting the very people you claim to be fighting for.
Right in the middle of all this chaos, you had Prime Minister Narendra Modi making a public appeal. He urged all the lawmakers to rise above, in his words, negativity, and actually get to work, really stressing the need to be productive.
But, outside of Parliament, the public debate was already on fire. Over on social media, you had tons of critics who were just completely cynical about the whole thing, basically dismissing it all as another circus. But at the very same time, a completely different conversation was happening. You had supporters of the government's plan praising these proposed bills, calling them bold, necessary, and long overdue reforms that the country just has to have.
And you could see this massive divide playing out online in real time. Hashtags like #WinterSession2025 and #ParliamentChaos were just blowing up. It really shows you how much this political fight in Delhi was grabbing the whole nation's attention, sparking these intense debates everywhere you looked.
Which, of course, brings us to the big question, right? After a start this chaotic, where does the session even go from here?
Well, it looks like there are really only two ways this can go. Path number one, we see a truly historic session that rewrites major laws on everything from the economy to elections. Path number two, we get a total legislative deadlock, a session that's remembered not for the laws it passed, but for how many times they had to hit the pause button.
So right now, the world's largest democracy is literally standing at a crossroads. And the outcome of this winter session, it's going to be a huge signal, telling us which one of these two paths the country is about to go down.
And all this leaves us with one final, really important question to think about. Is what we're witnessing here just democracy in action? You know, a messy but necessary form of protest that makes sure every voice gets heard. Or is it democracy in danger? A sign that the whole system is in trouble, where chaos and dysfunction are starting to win out over actual progress. I guess the next few weeks are going to give us our answer.